Deadlock is an early access game, and what that means is that, well, a lot is subject to change, because they are testing out a whole variety of different features, and also working on patching out certain bugs and other issues that crop up as players test the game. And so today, what I want to do is kind of air out some of my concerns about Deadlock, as I've now played the game for more than 150 hours, and give some constructive criticism as to things that I think could be improved in Deadlock. And also I just want to see where my community's at, where other people are at in terms of their problems with the game as well, because certainly a lot of things will be fixed before Deadlock goes into release, and I want to point out what I would like to see changed. So yeah, make sure you're subscribed, because we're going to be making a whole bunch of Deadlock content here on the channel, and also comment down below any problems that you might have with Deadlock, because I want this to just be a nice sort of almost forum where we can talk about constructive criticism for the game. I don't know if devs will see it, but if they do, then hopefully this is helpful. So first of all, let's talk about one of the biggest problems that I've encountered as I've sort of transformed into a Deadlock streamer and have had to focus more on which characters I want to play on stream. And yeah, that is this hero selection screen. It has one very giant glaring flaw, and that is the fact that to actually enter the queue and play a match of Deadlock, you're not guaranteed to play the hero that you select. And this is a problem that pretty much only Deadlock has, because, well, yeah, you have a random chance to, even if you have Lash here selected as high priority, get 7 or Viscous, because you need a minimum of 3 characters selected in order to enter the matchmaking queue. And so when I was streaming earlier today, I was trying to do a Lash training stream because I've really loved the character as of recently, and I ended up getting a random match of Viscous, and I absolutely love Viscous, but that wasn't the point of the stream, and I ended up, you know, spending 40 minutes having to get through a Viscous match before I could get back to training on Lash. And for streamers in particular, I think this is a big problem, because a very common thing is to get a donation request to play like one specific character, or at least that's the thing I like to do a lot when I stream. That's kind of one of my niches. And in Deadlock, there's a chance that, oh, let's say someone redeems who's a popular character, I don't know, Holiday. And then I try and queue for Holiday, but I get someone else. I basically just spend 40 minutes not completing that person's request, and then I have to queue another match, try and get Holiday, and it's not a good system. And I think the reason this is done is so that matchmaking times aren't too high, because if there's a particular character that's really popular, like Lash, and you are only queuing and searching for a Lash game, it might take a very long time in order to actually find the match. But personally, I think I'd prefer it if I only had to select one hero, and then the queue time just is what it is. And, you know, if a character happens to be popular and I have to wait a little bit longer to find a match for that character, that's okay. I think I'd rather prefer that than end up having a shorter queue time, but ending up having to spend a whole dedicated 40-minute long match playing a character that I wasn't necessarily trying to play at that moment. And it's especially frustrating to me because Deadlock has created what is otherwise a very healthy dynamic with its characters. There's no classes, and there's no need to really fill certain roles, right? You don't end up getting into a lobby like you would in Marvel Rivals or Paladins or Overwatch, where you have to fill as the support or fill as the tank and play a character that you don't want to play that way. Every character is self-sufficient. Every character is a powerhouse. Team compositions matter the least in Deadlock compared to those other games, and yet Deadlock is the only game where you don't have deterministic hero selection, where, yeah, you can choose 3 heroes here, but there is a slight chance that you don't get the one you want. And I really think that's a problem. That's one of the biggest gripes I've had with the game as of recently. Also, on the topic of queues, when you're queuing, there's not actually a queue time indicator on the top middle of the screen. I don't know why that is. You just can't see how long you've been queuing for. It's a really small addition, really minor point, but I thought I'd point it out anyways. Hi, I'm down here now. It would be remiss of me, as well, in this video, if I didn't talk about Pauselock, which is the plague that is infecting Deadlock, where people will just troll by pausing repeatedly. Yeah, you can pause an online game. Welcome to 2025. And yeah, watch this clip here. So the game is currently paused as we're going down the zip line. Okay, that's great. Fast forward about a minute and a half, and guess what? Someone else paused it. Weezard, I think it was our Mirage who decided to pause it. And then, yeah, if we fast forward a little bit, okay, Weezard decides to unpause it, and then, guess what? A few seconds later, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, another pause by our Infernus this time. So we just have multiple people trolling and pausing the match. And the reason this is possible is because in Deadlock, every single person gets access to one pause for the game, which means you potentially have 12 pauses throughout a Deadlock match, and they can just press P to pause the game at any time for any reason. And while it sounds good on paper, oh, you could just pause the online game if you need to go answer the door or go to the bathroom or something like that. In practice, most of the time I see pauses used are because people are trolling. The only time I actually see them used effectively is when someone has crashed and they're coming back, but I see that about as often as I've seen people just trolling and contributing to the plague of Pauselock. And I'm not really entirely sure why they've done this. I guess they're testing it because, I don't know, early access game, you can be a little bit more creative with some of your solutions, but I really think they should go back to how pausing works in some other games. Like, I'm pretty sure how it works in Counter-Strike is, if your team votes to pause, then you can pause the match, but it requires a team vote. It requires multiple people to pause for a deliberate, important reason, and it makes pausing a lot more serious, and it results in, well, not really the same level of trolling that exists here in Deadlock with its pauses. And so I really want them to revisit this system and fix it and make it so Pauselock goes away, because it's just obnoxious. It doesn't really achieve anything. You can come up with a better pause system than this. Next, I want to talk about something that I think probably ends up deterring a lot of new players who don't have a stream chat helping you out to learn how to turn on or off certain settings. So by default, a lot of characters have really slow ability casts, because you press a button and then you basically have to press the button again and you get overwhelmed by this whole menu right here. It's confusing and it doesn't feel very fluid. I have to press my button and then I have to left click to cube that target, or press the button and then just like alt cast like that. It's really weird. For the puddle punch I have to do that and then I have to deploy it. And all of that is rather slow, and it's actually one of the gripes I have about Marvel Rivals with certain characters like Loki, if you remember from that video. It's really slow. You have to press multiple buttons in order to actually use certain abilities. In Marvel Rivals, there's no way to turn that off, but in Deadlock, there is a way to turn that off. You go to your settings, and you go over to your keybinds, and you can go down here and set it to instant cast for both of these. And then all of a sudden I can just press the button, put it on you, press the button, throw the good puddle punch out, and all of a sudden Viscous goes from being a relatively clunky character to a character that feels really smooth and fast to play. And so one thing that I would really highly recommend is making the default option instant cast, because having this slower confirm cast is going to throw off a lot of people. I think the rationale behind having it be confirm cast by default is to help you understand, like, where each ability is going to be placed and what it's going to be used on. But I think it just ends up making the game clunky and honestly a little bit more overwhelming, because you're having to press more buttons to do what you want to do. And yeah, I think that it would probably just be more fluid for new players if it was instant cast, and it would probably help them understand and learn other systems better, because they'd have to spend less time pressing a million buttons to use their abilities. Also, another slight gripe when it comes to keybinds is actually here in the audio section. I want the ability to toggle push to talk. Right now you have to hold the button to push to talk, you can't toggle it, and as you can see here, there's no option to do that. You have your device input, you have the mic trigger threshold, but that's just like, you know, if a certain audio is below a certain threshold, it just won't transmit through. You can have streamlined mic, that doesn't really do much. There's no toggle option, and I would really like the ability to toggle it. Just press the button once and then go back to fighting, because if I'm trying to talk to people in the heat of battle, I don't want to have to be holding down a button while I'm trying to use my movement abilities and my other abilities. It's just, there are a lot of buttons you have to press in this game, especially if you have items that give you additional abilities on top of that. And so being able to toggle would be really, really nice for push to talk. Especially since, because there are so many buttons that you have to press in this game and so many different keybinds for your 4 active abilities, your 4 regular abilities, your movement keys, your parry keys, your melee keys, etc. You have to kind of put your voice chat sort of out of the way. I put it on caps lock because it's very close to my other keys, and I just find that to be comfortable, especially if I do have to hold the button down. But if I'm holding down the caps lock button, then, you know, I can't press shift as easily to do my dodge roll. It's really uncomfortable. And so, yeah, I think toggle push to talk would make this game so much better. Next, I want to talk about a few UI bugs, and these are technically pretty minor, but I thought I'd point them out anyways, because it just leaves the game feeling a little bit unpolished. I have zero doubt that these will be fixed by the time the game goes live. But first up, if you're trying to publish a build, this text menu is a little awkward. It looks fine at a glance, but that's because I've pressed enter for every single one of these lines. If I just start typing, bada 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 bada, you see, uh-oh. It just keeps pushing the build description all the way to the side. There's not proper text wrapping on this. I have no doubt this is going to be fixed. But I mean, come on, guys. and what's even more frustrating is that there is already text wrapping on items if you go to annotate an item. Oh, actually, no, I lied. There is no text wrapping here either. I guess I don't type enough on my annotations to know if there's text wrapping. But yeah, there's just no text wrapping on these. It makes making builds really awkward. And also, if you're editing these categories here, and you have really small categories, like this one that has anti-healing items in it, I can't even edit the description. I would have to go out of my way to make this category bigger, which then would really throw off the balance of categories that I have here. And also, if a category has a really big description here, right, and then I try and edit it, it's really awkward because, like, currently, okay, if I go there and then press end, I can't even see what I'm typing. Like, if I try and type, hey, guys, my name is Andrew, you see how those, like, I can't even really see my text that I'm typing. It's very clunky. There are a lot of UI problems when it comes to making builds, and I hope that they get fixed, because making builds is fun, you know, putting items together, crafting the perfect build, but then actually editing the categories and the UI and making it all pretty, jazzing it up, really just kind of is frustrating. It makes me not want to work with the build system as much, because this part of it is very clunky. And then also, when we're talking about UI bugs, I encountered a pretty nasty bug with Grey Talon, where basically when you're using his ult, right, you see on the right of my reticle how it says left click to accelerate. Okay, that works. I can accelerate like that. Space to detonate. Well, I'm going to spam the space key. Ready? It doesn't work. And I think the reason why this doesn't work is because in my settings, for my alt cast, or for canceling the ability, I have the cancel ability mode to be the ability key. So we have cancel key here for space, we have cancel key or the ability key, and then we just have regular ability key. And I set it to ability key because I don't really like the cancel key being space, and I probably could just rebind that, to be honest. But yeah, I didn't like space being my cancel key for a lot of characters, because for stuff like Kelvin's run or Infernus's run, you can't jump during those, but I would instinctively try to press jump anyways, and then it would cancel the ability and it would get me killed, so I turned that off. But because it's set to ability key here, for some reason it still says space to cancel or to detonate the bird, when instead it should say E. Because if I press E, it detonates just fine, and you see that, even though it says E to cancel, he does actually detonate the bird just fine. So that completely threw me off for a lot of my Grey Talon gameplay, especially in my recent video that I just made about him. And yeah, it's another pretty massive UI bug. So in general, for these abilities that have special things that happen when you cancel them, I think that UI needs a refresher. Otherwise, like me, you're going to be very, very confused when certain things just don't work. I also think it would be really nice to be able to invert the alternate cast for some items and abilities, because there are some abilities in this game where the default cast has you apply it to someone else. For example, Healing Right and the Divine Barrier both, if I just tap the abilities, they will go to that bot over there. And if I'm not looking at a bot, then tapping them just does nothing. And I think it would be much faster if I could just invert the alt cast, because most of the time I want to use these abilities on myself. So that way, if I just tap the button, then I instantly get my Healing Right and my Divine Barrier. There's currently no option. I checked. I really searched thoroughly in the item categories, and I just in the keybind settings, and I just wasn't able to find anything like that. And I think if you could just fine-tune each of these options, or each of these abilities that has an alternate cast, and decide whether you want the self-cast to be alternate or default, I think that would be really, really nice. At the end of the day, though, Deadlock is a really fun game. There are a lot of great things going for it, and you'll notice that out of all my complaints for the actual game here that I've made in this video, Not really any of them actually pertain to the gameplay, except maybe the whole item instant casting and stuff like that. And yeah, that's because I really like a lot of the systems in Deadlock. I love the zip lines, I love the character abilities, I like the guardians and the minions and all that stuff. It's really, really fun. They've got a super solid system here. A lot of it really does just come down to polish, fixing certain systems that are confusing or just don't really work, like I mentioned with Great Talon earlier, and also, yeah, fixing the fact that, you know, choosing your hero isn't really deterministic. Deadlock has a great thing going for it, where team comps don't matter nearly as much in this game as they do in other games. Shoot, you can't even choose your own team comp unless you're playing custom games. And so, yeah, I mean, I honestly quite like that. It is fun. A lot of the characters in this game are all really, really balanced, and so, you know, every game feels fine. I don't feel like I'm losing because of my team comp most of the time. And, yeah, I'm not blaming healer, I'm not forced to fill on a role I don't like, and yet sometimes I can just not get the character that I wanted to play because Valve just said no. That whole random thing about choosing characters and not being able to get the character that you put at high priority just really sucks, and I hope they change that. That's like the biggest gripe of the entire video for me. But yeah, let me know what you think about all the complaints that I have filed here in today's video. I hope they're constructive. I know a lot of them probably do sound like nitpicks, but I'm the type of guy who looks for nitpicky things regarding polish, like those things when it comes to the UI, and I feel like that is where the game is kind of weakest at the moment. Besides, obviously, pointing out the obvious things like, oh, okay, hey, some of the characters don't look great. They've already stated publicly that they are going to be changing a lot of the character models before they go into live. That's why you didn't hear me complain about, like, oh, Yamato looks terrible. Because, yeah, that's already going to be changed. I'm not being productive by pointing that out. So I tried to also point out things that not a lot of people are really talking about right now, because, I don't know, maybe there's a good reason they're not talking about it right now. Maybe it's not that important. Maybe I'm an old man yelling at the void with this video. I don't know, we'll see. But, yeah, if you guys have enjoyed this video, make sure to drop a like, subscribe for more future Deadlock on the channel, and if you want to support me, keep me doing what I'm doing, and help me out here as we transition into Deadlock content, which is a very difficult task here, then, yeah, please consider becoming a member on YouTube. You get to choose your perks and choose your price as well, and you really help support the channel in the process. Would really, really appreciate it if you check that out. But with all that being said, thank you guys for watching. I will see you all next time. Peace out.